Hey Heidi, how's it going?
Hello, nice to see you again. Where? Where are
Yeah,
you
nice to see you
today?
as well. I'm in a Starbucks. I'm finally in California. Yay, we made it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
really?
so I just got here maybe 1 hour ago. So I have two Colingo classes, and after my two Colingo classes are done, I'm gonna head straight to San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Starbucks?
Starbucks, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yes, yes. Okay. Christmas
Yeah,
party.
so,
Christmas top.
exactly. Christmas themed Starbucks, yeah, absolutely. But it's been a really good drive. Today I crossed Nevada. Nevada is a state that is mostly desert.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes during the drive, I thought I was the only person in the world. There were no other cars on the highway
Mm-hmm.
for hours. Like for 2 hours, I was the only car on the highway.
And how long?
Such an interesting, such
How
an
long?
amazing feeling.
How
Two
long?
hours. I was for
2 hours.
hours.
And for this
Yeah.
lesson, how long do you need to stay there, here, Starbucks?
Oh no. Here I can stay here I can stay as long as I want. But for the lessons, I'll be here for 2 hours. What I was saying was earlier today, when I was driving, I was the only car on the road for 2 hours. So that was a crazy experience. I've never seen that before. Where usually I see some traffic, but there's absolutely none. So yeah, hey Jake, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm waiting for you.
I know
you
I was
at?
late because I was traveling, so I just got to this Starbucks maybe a little while ago because I don't have internet access, so I had to find a Starbucks first. I'm in California.
Yeah, good.
So I'm actually in California right now. I was driving across the country, finally got here maybe 2 hours ago or 1 hour ago. So yeah, finally made it here.
Good.
Jake, are you I guess how was your day? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Because there's some noise here. Okay, so you can still hear me. That's good. I can hear you as well. That's good. How's your day?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I went to my parents' house to have dinner together.
Fantastic. That's awesome. You guys had dinner together.
Yeah.
So really good, guys. Francisco, how's it going? Welcome.
Hi, teacher. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here.
It's good. Okay. Good. It's good to see you guys. Let's get started, guys, because of my technical problems, I was unable to start until right now. So let's get started. Welcome, guys. Today marks actually the first new phase of Colingo. So we are actually going to be breaking up classes into different levels. So the first thing I wanted to mention was that this class is actually a high intermediate level class. And I think all of you guys qualify for high intermediate. But from now on in Colingo, we're actually getting rid of the 100, 200, 300, 400 levels, and we're replacing them with actual descriptions of what level the class should be. And for this class, it's a high intermediate, right? So today we're going to be talking about used to, right? How we use used to. And just to get us thinking about used to, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me, what did you used to do when you were a child? What did you used to do in school as a child? Did you have specific things that you did all the time, or maybe, yeah, in school, maybe people remember you as like the crazy kid. Yeah, Heidi, do you want to start?
When I was a child in the school, I used to be
Uh-huh.
quiet. I used to be shy. So I didn't used to talk with others so much.
Uh-huh. So you used to be shy. You didn't used to talk a lot when you were a child in school. Fantastic. Jake, what about you?
Mm, I live in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and I have been living in New York for approximately 2 years now. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much longer I'm going to. I'm thinking. So I used to go to Korea once a year, but
Once a year. Uh-huh. And you're
yeah,
in New York now, right?
yes.
Where in New York again, Jake? I forgot.
I I came here for greener pastures. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, of
yeah,
course. Of
in
course.
it
I think a
means
lot of
that
people come
yeah,
here.
in search for better life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But where in New York do you live? Or do you live in the city? Do you live outside the city?
Uh, in Queens, in
In
New York.
Queens. Okay.
Yeah, in
Nice.
Queens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know exactly where Queens is. I know exactly where that is. I just wanted to
Yeah.
know what part. I think you told me before, but I forgot. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm on the other side of the country now, unfortunately, but I know exactly where that is. So great. Okay, guys. So you used to go to Korea once a year. Fantastic. That's a great way to use used to. And Francisco, last but not least, what was something that you used to do when you were a child in school?
Well, when I was a child, I used to play with my friends during that break.
Uh-huh. During the school break, right?
Yeah.
You can also say, actually, Francisco, there's another word for it. You could say recess
Ah, okay.
as well. So recess is that time during the day when the kids go outside and play and they come back. You know. So yeah, we can use the word recess as well. Fantastic. Um, okay, guys. So you guys all used the used to phrase. Uh, very, in a very correct way, actually. Um, I'm just going to quickly review how it is that we use used to, and then we are going to look at the article. So, because you guys are at a high intermediate level, right? Because this class is designed to be a high intermediate class, we're not going to be we're not going to be discussing the grammar in detail, right? Those grammar heavy, grammar focused lessons are going to be the low beginner and the low. I'm sorry, the low intermediate and the beginner classes are going to focus on the grammar, right? So if you guys have questions about the grammar, of course, let me know. But the focus is actually going to be on the discussion and on the conversation in this class, okay? So when we use used to, right, we're talking about habitual actions that we did in the past, right? Things that you used to do, things that you did many times. It was habitual, right? And when we use used to, there are three ways that we form. There are three ways that we form this construction, right? Well, actually, one main way. So let me go. Let me just review this one main way with you guys first. We have just the subject, and then the verb, and then the phrase used to, and then a verb, right? So I used to play with my friends when I was a child, right? Whatever the case might be. I used to, Heidi used to be shy, right? So for Heidi, the verb is actually just the word be, right? She used to be shy, right? And when we look at other examples, that's the main construction. The subject plus the verb plus used to. We can also, if we want to make it negative, we can say the subject did not or didn't, and then used to, right? So this is what's actually really interesting. When we make it a negative, we don't say used, we say use, right? Just USE without a D. So I didn't used to do my homework when I was a child, right? I didn't used to. Not used, but use, right? So there's that slight difference between the positive and the negative, okay? Any questions so far on this, guys?
No
No
question.
question.
No, no questions?
Yes.
Okay,
No questions.
fantastic, fantastic. Eh, Great, Francisco. And then the last example that I want to talk about, so there are some other ways we can use to, right? I can say, for example, I used to do something, right? That means that I did that as a habitual action in the past, right? However, now you can also say if you use I am used to something, if you use the verb to be in the present tense just before used to, I am used to something, that means that that is normal for you. It's not new for you. It's something that you can do very easily. It's something that you've mastered, right? I am used to driving across the country several times a month, right? Maybe like a truck driver or something like that can say that, right? I am not used to driving across the country in 1 week, which is what I did. I did it in 3 days. It was kind of crazy. So, we have these special situations in which we use used to, right? And when we make it a negative, we use used to. I did not used to, right? Habitual actions, things that you did in the past that you don't do anymore. When you use the verb to be before, I am used to something, he is used to something, that means that it's no longer new for you. It's something that has become normal for you, right? Any questions, guys?
No
No,
question?
it's okay.
Yeah, no question.
No questions. Alrighty, fantastic, guys. This is going to be the new focus, right? Because it's a high intermediate class, we're going to just briefly look at the grammar, right? And then we're going to be, when we actually talk about the discussion questions, those discussion questions, we're going to be focusing a lot on using the examples that we learned about used to, right? So, great job, guys. Let's jump into the article, right? Today's article, we are actually going to be learning about Filipino Americans, right? So, Filipino Americans have made a lot of contributions to this country's history. However, not a lot of people know that, right? So we are going to be learning about what is happening in California, actually. So it's very appropriate for me that I'm here when we talk about this article, right? And we will read what they are trying to do, right? So this is how it's going to happen, guys. After every 2 paragraphs, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to ask you guys if you guys understood what I'm reading, okay? The idea is that if you did not understand what I was reading, or if you did not understand any words that I said or that are in the article, you should tell me, okay? So that really is the new focus. We don't want to just read the article and at the end say, oh, okay, here's some questions, right? We're changing the entire layout. After every 2 paragraphs, something doesn't make sense, you tell me, and specifically words that don't make sense, I want you guys to tell me. So let's take a look at this article, and I'm going to screen share very quickly too, so we can read about them, right? So, California, writing Filipino Americans into the history books, right? That's the title. Los Angeles. California Governor Jerry Brown last week signed legislation that would incorporate the inclusion of Filipino American history in textbooks statewide. Brown signed AB 123, a bill introduced by Filipino American Assembly member Rob Bonta earlier this year, which would require the State Board of Education to include the role of Filipino Americans in the farm worker movement as part of the state's curriculum. Any questions, guys, on those first 2 paragraphs? For example, the word legislation. Do you guys know what that means?
Some place.
Uh-huh. Well, Hattie, can you say that one more time? I couldn't hear you.
Sign up in something like that. His name.
Yeah, legislation is actually another word for law, right? When you sign a law, when you sign a new law, it's the same thing as saying you're signing a new legislation, right? So the California governor just last week signed legislation. He signed a law that would incorporate the inclusion of Filipino American history in textbooks statewide. What does it mean if we say incorporate the inclusion of Filipino Americans? Francisco, what does that mean?
Incorporate inclusion. Well, they are saying that they are going to add in textbooks the Filipino American history. maybe
Fantastic,
the books
exactly.
are going to talk about Filipino American.
Yeah, Francisco, you hit the nail on the head, 100%, right? So when they say they want to incorporate the inclusion, all they're saying is they will include Filipino American history in their textbooks. They will add it to the textbooks, right? To the textbooks that the students in California that they read when they read history in this state, right? So what about this next part here? Brown, so this is the governor. He signed this bill, this law, right, which was introduced by Rob Bonta. This guy is just a member of the California Congress. Okay, not important. Which would require the state board of education to include the role of Filipino Americans in the farm worker movement as part of the state's curriculum. Right. So what we're saying here is the state board of education is the big department. Every state in the U.S. has a board of education. They regulate education. They make the rules for education. They publish the textbooks. They say this is what will get covered. This is what will not get covered, right? And what they will include is Filipino Americans were in the farm worker movement, right? So in early American history, there were a lot of immigrants who were farm workers, right? A lot of people came from China. They worked on the railroads. A lot of people came from Japan. They also worked on the railroads. Filipinos came to the U.S. and they worked as farm workers, right? So this information will now be included in the textbooks, right? So let's look at this third paragraph. I am proud that Governor Brown recognizes the contributions of Filipinos to the history of our state and country by signing AB 123 and including them in the history and social sciences curriculum taught in California schools, Bonta said in a statement. Bonta referenced Filipino Americans Philip Veracruz and Larry Itliong, who were among the Delano Manongs, first-generation immigrants who helped found the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee before merging with Cesar Chavez's United Farm Workers. So, it's just a little bit of history, guys, right? This first paragraph, what does this first paragraph say, Jake? What's it talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry.
This paragraph
Say
right
again,
here,
please.
what's it talking about? Yeah, this paragraph right here, the one I'm highlighting. What's the theme of that paragraph?
I cannot read. Can I read?
Yeah, of course. You can read it if you want as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, what's the idea? You know? Did you listen to me when I was reading?
Yeah. I needed some time.
It's fine. You can read it again. Yeah, that's fine, Jake. No worries. You know, I'll come back to you. Okay. What about this one right here, Heidi? What does this paragraph talk about? Or like, did you have any questions about it? Maybe did it make sense?
The first paragraph? Huh?
No, the
first-
second one right here that starts with Bonta. This one right here. This one right here.
Yeah. He,
The fourth one from the top. But
he required the government to include the Filipino American history in the school text.
exactly in the textbooks, right? And in this case, this person is talking about specific Filipino Americans, right? So one of them is this guy Philip Veracruz. Another one is a guy named Larry Itliong. These two people were very important in the early history. So this paragraph is talking specifically about these two guys, right? That's all. These two people were very important, right? So Jake, did you get a chance to take a look at this one? Just the main idea, you know, from what we're talking about.
Well, however, I believe that I'm kind of on the fence. I lean toward the side of
That's fine, Jake. I can help you out. I can help you out, right?
Yeah, I lean
this
towards
article.
Yes.
This article in general is just talking about the fact that they are now going to have Filipino history Filipino American history in some textbooks, right? So that was all. I want you guys to ask me, please, please, please ask me if you don't understand what we're talking about, right? Because then as I'm reading, I can stop and say, okay, did you guys understand? Did you guys have questions? It's very difficult for me to know if you guys don't ask me questions, you know? So I want you to stop me and I want you to say, hey, stop, you know, I don't know what you're saying. Can you please tell me what this word means or what this word means, right? I want to help you guys. So let's ask these questions. So far, the only idea we saw, the main idea has just been that they are going to be including Filipino history in textbooks, right? So let's start here with Cruz, okay? And please ask me questions, okay? This is the new theme for all of these colingo classes. Cruz, Itliong, and the Delano Manongs contribution. These are just people, okay? Forget the names. These are just people. Their contributions to the farm worker movement that sparked massive social change in the 1960s and 1970s are largely forgotten in mainstream history books and national media, Banta said, right? So all of these Filipino people, their struggles, they worked really hard in the 1960s and the 1970s, right? That information is forgotten, right? So if the information is forgotten, Francisco, does it make sense that they are now being included in the history books?
Yes, teacher. It's a little. Well, I think that these people's contribution have been forgotten because they
Yeah.
worked hard. They worked hard for the USA and they deserve to be remembered.
Absolutely, 100%, Francisco, right? And these people, they did so much. So in the 1960s and the 1970s, right, they did a lot of social change, right? It says here massive social change, so huge amount of social change, yeah. But because they did not have any space in the history books, no one knew about them, right? So they were forgotten. Now it's time for us to remember them, right?
Yeah, I think
yeah, go ahead,
they,
Francisco, yeah.
yeah, I think they should be remembered because they do a lot for USA. Like for example, like Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez was an active and a Mexican American activist. So
Yeah,
I think he's in the history right now. But
he
Philippines
is, yeah.
history is forgotten.
Exactly right, and that's perfect, Francisco. Right, you're you're actually aiming at the heart of this article, right? So here, you know, we a little while ago we read that these two Filipino Americans they actually joined with Cesar Chavez, but nobody knows their names. Nobody knows Philip Veracruz and Larry Itliong, right? Everyone knows Cesar Chavez. So
Yeah.
it's that idea of remembering them that's really important, right? So let's see what people say. It's about time, said Johnny Itliong, Larry Itliong's son. I've waited for most of my life for people to give my father credit for his work. This is a dream come true, right? So this is the son. The son is saying, wow, you know, so many years later now my father is finally getting the respect and getting that credit, right? Uh, this son, Johnny, who is in the process of writing a book about his father, said it's important for Filipino kids to learn about their history. Most Filipino Americans don't really learn about the contributions of Filipinos in the farm worker movement until they get into college, right? So it's not even, they don't even mention it in the high school. No, none of the students know about this in the high school, right? So it's kind of sad. They only learn about it in college, maybe. So by signing AB 123, Governor Brown has made an unprecedented move to give students a more complete account of California's farm labor movement and ensure that these important leaders, such as Philip Veracruz and Larry Itliong, are remembered by future generations of Californians. Right? Heidi, what do you think about this paragraph right here?
Hmm?
Is it a nice summary of what we talked about? Yeah.
The governor. Okay. I mean, I don't know it. Okay. The governor Brown make the trying the first thing. It was first time to do the meeting to give the speech
Uh-huh.
about the California before that before this before article mentioned the person who lead the workers to get better wage or better environment for the workers,
Mhm.
right? And then this is the first time to student how Filipinos contributed in the American history.
Yeah, right. Especially Filipino American students, because
Yeah.
they are Filipino, but they don't know, right? They don't know about the history, unfortunately. So now this is a big aspect of this, right? Now we are learning more about. Okay, now if this information is finally in the textbooks, then hopefully Filipino children and all other children will learn about this as well, right? So I'm not going to be focusing too much more on the article, guys, because that was the gist of the article, right? In the words in the article, the words that we mentioned, right? Did you guys not understand some of the words? There were maybe a few words that were new to you guys. For example, spearheaded, right? This word, I see this word and I immediately think I should ask you guys about this word. What does it mean when someone spearheads something? It's a verb, right?
Leading the movement.
Yeah, leading the movement, right? Fantastic. Somebody who leads a movement, leads an organization, spearheads that movement or spearheads that organization. So here in this example, it was Itliong, this guy, one of the Filipino Americans, who spearheaded the 1960s farm worker movement, right? He was the one who was the leader, but no one really remembers him. People remember Cesar Chavez, but they don't remember him, right? So what about some other words, guys, that maybe were new to you guys? Jake, were there any words here that seemed new to you? Maybe unprecedented. What does unprecedented mean? Jake, if you want to maybe give it a try.
Mm. Oh, I don't know.
That's completely fine, Jake. Completely fine. What's yeah?
It didn't.
I'm sorry, Heidi.
It didn't exist before.
Yeah, something that didn't exist before. Something that happened for the first time, right? Something that's unprecedented has no precedent, right? And the word precedent. So when we say, let me switch back to my face, guys, so you guys can all see me, right? Yeah, Francisco, I apologize for the noise. I'm in a Starbucks right now. Is it really loud?
Okay, teacher. Okay.
I feel bad because I'm in this like a little bit loud area, right? If it gets loud, really loud, let me know. I can go outside. I can go over there. So let me know if that's the case, right? But unprecedented, right? So when we say unprecedented, it means it doesn't have a precedent. Unprecedented, right? A precedent is a previous example, right? So for example, if I was speeding, on the street, and the ticket gave and the police gave me a ticket, right? That would be a precedent for me. That would be an example, right? That would be an example of something that's a precedent, where there's a previous example. The second time the police catch me, they'll see my record and they'll say, oh, okay, you were also ticketed once before, right? So that earlier example is my precedent. If it's my first time getting a ticket, then tickets for me are unprecedented. There is no precedent. There's no previous. It's the first time something happens, right? So when we see unprecedented here, right, it's saying very simply that this is the first time, this is an unprecedented move to give the students information about the Filipino Americans. So it's never done before. This is the first time in California history that something like this is being done, right? So that's a really good word as well to remember. And yeah, Francisco, there are some children here, but most of them are old people, so maybe they will start leaving within the next like half an hour, hopefully.
Okay, teacher.
But do let me know if it gets loud, though, Francisco. Do let me know if it gets loud, because there are spaces over there that maybe are more quiet.
Okay, teacher, don't worry.
Yeah, sure. So, guys, what other words? Any other words that you guys thought were new or interesting from the article? Because I want to focus on these vocab words also. Nothing else? It seems like you guys are quiet. Jake or Heidi? No other vocab words?
Okay, nothing.
Nothing. Okay, great. Fantastic. So, let's look at the article questions I had then, right? And let's use the use to as much as we can, right, when we answer these questions. So, let me ask you guys, I'm going to ask you guys individually, right? I'll start with Francisco. Francisco, have you read or learned about how immigrant populations, for example, how they used to live in Mexico and how if they contributed to Mexican society? Is this something that you studied, or is this something that people can study easily in like high school in Mexico, for example? Do they cover these topics?
About immigration here in Mexico? Or...
Yeah. Perhaps different populations, right? Different populations that moved from other countries to Mexico.
Yeah, we have here that a technical group called the Menonitas. They have come from Germany, and they have had a good contribution to Mexico, because they know how to pump up water from earth. They prepare the delicious cheeses.
Oh wow!
And they have a big crops.
So a lot of agricultural stuff.
Yeah.
So the Mennonites. I think we say in English. I think we call them Mennonites. Actually, I might be wrong, but Menonitas.
Okay.
I think it's Mennonites. Actually, let me write this down. Mennonites. I think it might be that one, Francisco. Right. So, if I was a student in Mexico, maybe in 9th grade, 10th grade, high school, could I learn about them in the history books? Do you know, or do you remember? Or are they?
Yeah, you can learn from them, because in the textbooks, they talk about Mennonites, and they have their space in the textbooks.
That's awesome. So there actually is information about this group in the Mexican history textbooks. That's great. Heidi, what about in Japan? Is there a group of immigrants in Japanese history, or any other population group maybe that is discussed in the Japanese history books?
Yes, before World War One, many Japanese people moved to Brazil. Many immigrants in Brazil. They had a hard worker in that time. The government of Brazil gave them the right to cultivate mountainside. It was a very hard place and wild forest. So they made a lot of effort. At first they cut the forest, and they needed to dig up the root. How tough it was.
Very tough.
Finally they made a coffee farms. Now they are quite rich. The Japanese people worked very hard and polite and modest. So now I heard Brazilian appreciate Japanese people, immigrant.
Mm-hmm. And there are several Japanese Brazilian people on Colingo. I've met one of them before, and they are very. They're 100% Brazilian. Very, very, very proud to be Brazilian, and very respected in Brazil. They have other Brazilian people look to the Japanese Brazilians as kind of model examples, right? They worked really hard. They came from another country, but they didn't stop. They didn't, they weren't lazy. They were very industrious people, and they accomplished a lot, right? Now, is this something you can read about in the Japanese history books in high school, Heidi, or is this something that you have to want to study?
Sometimes I read some articles about the immigrant.
Do you think the average high schooler in Japan knows about this, though?
No, in the school I've never learned about that.
Maybe they should include some information about these Japanese immigrants, right? So that kids know. Maybe they could talk about Japanese people who went to Brazil, who went to Peru, who went to the United States, I mean, millions came to the United States, I think. Like, thousands, hundreds of thousands maybe came to the United States, right?
Before Japanese into Brazil, then met the first generation of immigrants. That time I read some article in the newspaper,
Uh-huh.
but I've never learned about immigrant in the school text.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. And Jake, what about in Korea, or now that you're in the United States, have you read about, for example, Korean immigrants, their contribution to the United States, how they used to, how they are helping, and how they used to help the United States? Have you looked into this at all, or do you think it's something people know about? Yeah.
Well, most of people have a longing for American. So so I a lot of people would you like to know what the story of human, like American people, American history?
Mhm. A
So
lot of people. So, what you're saying, Jake, is a lot of people study American history. Is that what you said?
yeah, Korean people
Uh huh.
have a longing for America, like America. So
Okay.
I would like to know what the story of human, like American history, American culture, how they live, how you know, the- how they have to learn more. So
Yeah, I think
uh,
I understand what you're saying, Jake. Like you Korean people have an interest in a lot of American things, and
yeah,
so there is an interest among Korean people, and maybe I think you said you are also interested in knowing about the American history and the American lifestyle and things like that. Is
yes,
that what you're saying? Okay. So I think, yeah, I think many times, sorry guys, I think many times there's a mutual interest in learning about these kinds of things, right? Because, for example, there's an interest in learning about the other culture, and there's also an interest in learning about your own culture, right? So for immigrants, people like me, like I'm an immigrant, right? I grew up in the U.S., but my parents are from another country. I wasn't born here, right? I was born somewhere else also. So I've been exposed to all of these different cultures. I know pieces of some of them, but I know the American culture the most, right? But I know pieces from the other ones. So sometimes I wonder, about different questions. I ask different questions about the other cultures, and that's how we explore. That's how immigrant children, that first generation, that second generation, this is how they explore. This is how they figure out what they need to do. So I think what you said makes sense, Jake. Um, I'm going to ask you though something else now, Jake, and I want you to use the used to, right? So how do you think the first Koreans who moved to the U.S. how did they used to live, right? What was their Did they struggle? Did they have a very difficult time when they moved to the United States? Maybe you know because you are also living in the United States now, right? What is the experience among the Koreans who live here?
in New York, here.
Yeah, here in the U.S.
Mm, mm, my
Was
my
was
my
was
parents my
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
parents yes,
Yeah.
I live apart from my parents. My parents live in New York City,
Uh huh.
so I have a lot of more family in New York. So my my parents work at laundry store.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay. Good. Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you, Jake. Uh,
exactly.
Francisco, I was going to ask you the same question. Um, when it comes to learning about the immigrant culture, right? What do you think about the struggles of Mexican Americans or folks who have lived in the United States who have come from Mexico? Do you think their lives used to be better in Mexico, or were their lives more difficult in Mexico? Is that why they left? You know, what do we know about Mexican Americans, or what do you know about Mexican Americans?
Well, the thing that I know about Mexican Americans is that they went to USA to well, seeking the American dream. Some of them, well, I think that some of them are got this dream, but others maybe they couldn't reach this dream. But, but I think everybody who has gone to USA, I think starts well in a situation where they need or they have to work very hard, maybe working in agriculture or working in heavy works.
Hmm.
So most of the time, people who has arrived to the United States and are immigrants, they have to start with heavy things, with heavy works. So
Hmm.
it's not so easy. But
It's not easy. Yeah. They have to start at the bottom, right? When you come here,
yeah,
you start at the bottom. So, you know, you have to prove yourself before you can achieve the American dream, right? I think that's something that really all the cultures that come to the US, they realize that, you know, you can work here, you can work hard and you can make money, you can save money, but you have to work hard, you know. Nobody will give you, I mean, generally people don't succeed in this country if they don't work really hard, you know, because it's a society that's built on time equals money. You know, the more you work, the more money you make, right?
yeah.
And so, yeah, that's interesting. So, do you think Mexican Americans who come back to Mexico, do they bring a lot of these ideas with them to Mexico, Francisco? Is this how are young Mexicans aware of the opportunities in America because of this conversation, maybe between Mexicans and Mexican Americans?
Well, I think that today that young people are aware of the opportunities that they can have in the USA, but most of the people who go to USA, uh, maybe can be people who don't have some studies or something like that. But I think maybe in Mexico or other countries, maybe we need more opportunities to young people or more jobs or something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think especially because sometimes Mexican society doesn't have the same level of, I guess people can work hard, but they don't get what they want, right? Because of so many problems, because of government, maybe because of corruption, things like that, right? As a result, maybe there's a sense of desperation among young Mexicans, right? I
Yeah,
think that might be the case also in India. That, you know, they're desperate. They have to leave, which is why they leave. And sometimes they leave, and very educated people do very, very poor jobs because they just want to leave their situation. So they'll do anything. They'll come to the U.S. and they will do, you know, a job that is a very low-paying job because they have no other choice. You know, they're desperate. So that's sad. We see that sometimes as a side effect of this, of what we see with immigrants, right? Thank you, Francisco, for sharing. That was great. Uh, I was also going to ask Heidi. Heidi, do you think um, Japanese Americans who have lived in the U.S. have they have they contributed to the Japanese culture? do they go back to Japan and share their experience, or are Japanese people aware of how these Japanese Americans used to live?
Many Japanese immigrated in Hawaii, in the part of America.
Sure.
Then they calculated the wide place, and they made some farms, pineapple farm or something. That work in that forest, they brought Japanese kimono, a lot of Japanese kimono, but it's not effective to work. So they reformed. They used to reform the kimono to shirts. It became aloha shirt.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that how the aloha shirt was born? Like
Yes.
the
At
famous
first,
Hawaiian shirt?
Japanese people invented aloha shirts from kimono. So the early time, the aloha shirt is likely Japanese kimono pattern.
No way. I had no idea, because when I see the Hawaiian shirts, I thought they were something just from Hawaii, just normally from Hawaii. I had no idea that there was an influence from Japan.
Yeah, old one is
No, that's great.
it's made of silk or something, likely Japanese pattern.
Made from silk. Wow, that's so cool. I own a few Hawaiian shirts, but I actually did not know that they involve Hawaii, any kind of Japanese patterns, unfortunately. So makes sense to me. And last but not least, guys, let me ask you guys one final question in the last couple of minutes. Well, actually, I don't think we have too much time for a question. Jake, I have one question for you. So when we talk about Korean Americans, do the Korean Americans who live in the United States, when they go back to Korea, maybe when they go visit Korea, do they share their experiences with their Korean relatives? Do they help these two countries become closer, Korea and the United States?
Oh, well, I have no idea.
That's fine. That's fine. It's it's something that I think maybe that's the case, right? When we have Korean people from any country, when they go back to their home country and they meet with relatives, right? They tell them, this is how I used to live in America, or this is how I used to live now. This is how I used to live in Korea, and now this is how I live in America, right? Or it's so much better, or it's so different, right? Many types of examples. And maybe that influences how people think, right? Maybe it informs people and shows people differences between Korea and the United States. So that's all, guys. I wanted to. I mean, Jake, did this lesson make sense to you? What we were talking about, and the grammar, and all these other things that we mentioned. Was it easy for you to understand, or was it more difficult?
It's half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah.
I think Jake, it would be helpful if maybe you join an intermediate class, right?
Yeah.
This one was advanced intermediate, so the conversation and also some of the vocabulary, some of those words were more advanced, right? And you can practice up to that level, but maybe next time choose an intermediate class and see if you like it, see if it makes it easier for you to understand the topic, and then come back into the advanced intermediate, because I think it'll help you with that. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now with these new levels, right, we're changing a lot of things in Colingo. We're asking students to actually join what they think is best for them, right? So joining the intermediate, joining the advanced intermediate, depending on what they feel is best for them. Right? Okay. So great, thanks, guys. One last thing I wanted to mention. So I just wanted to quickly recap used to, right? What we use the phrase used to for. So used to we use when we're talking about habitual actions in the past, things that we did on a regular basis in the past, right? I used to eat breakfast every morning. Japanese Americans or Japanese Brazilians used to grow coffee on these plantations, right? We heard that from Heidi. They destroyed the hill and they made plantations on these hills, right? Now they are very respected in Brazilian society, right? Another use of used to if we are making it a negative statement, then we don't say used to. We don't say used to. We say used to, right? They didn't use to do something. There's no D, right? They didn't use to do something. Last but not least, we also use used to when we are talking about things that we are already that have become normal for us already, right? I am used to waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? Francisco, what's another example of something like that? Very quickly, one last grammar question. Another example of how you can use a subject, the verb to be, and then use to talk about something that is now normal for you. What's another example?
I used to run 10 kilometers every day when I was young.
Fantastic. That's when you were young, right? But what about if we use the subject, so I, plus the verb to be, so I am, and then you say used to. What does that mean? Remember, if we say I am used to something, he is used to something, yeah.
Okay. I am used to read 2 pages of my book every day.
So that's something that's become normal for you, right, Francisco? It's very normal for you.
Yeah.
Right? But when we use that, though, Francisco, remember, after used to, the verb needs to be in the ing form, right?
Okay.
So it would be, what would the sentence look like then?
Okay. I'm used to reading 2 pages daily.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am used to reading 2 pages every day. 2 pages daily, maybe before you go to sleep, something like that, right? Okay, fantastic, guys. Any other questions about this class? Guys, I have another class starting right now. You guys have any questions?
Teacher.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, Francisco, thank you so much. Jake, it was good to see you again as well. Any questions?
No questions.
Alrighty. Take care, guys. I'll catch you guys soon.
Thank you. I'll see
Thank
you
you,
around.
teacher.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Heidi, how's it going?
Hello, nice to see you again. Where are
Yeah,
you?
nice to see you as well. I'm in a Starbucks. I'm finally in California. Yay, we made it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, so I just got here maybe 1 hour ago. So I have 2 Colingo classes, and after my 2 Colingo classes are done, I'm gonna head straight to San Jose. So that's the plan.
Starbucks?
Starbucks, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. Okay. Christmas
Yeah.
party. Christmas party.
Exactly. Christmas themed Starbucks. Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm waiting for you.
I know
Where
I
you
was
at?
late because because I was traveling, so I just got to this Starbucks maybe a little while ago because I don't have internet access, so I had to find a Starbucks first. I'm in California.
Yeah, good.
So I'm actually in California right now. I was driving across the country, finally got here maybe 2 hours ago or 1 hour ago. So yeah, finally made it here.
Good.
Jake, are you I guess how was your day? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Because there's some noise here. Okay, so you can still hear me. That's good. I can hear you as well. That's good. How's your day?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I went to my parents' house to have dinner together.
Fantastic. I was thinking about used to. I'm going to ask you guys to tell me, what did you used to do when you were a child? What did you used to do in school as a child? Did you have specific things that you did all the time, or maybe Yeah, in school, maybe people
Okay.
remember you as
Mhm.
as like the crazy kid. Yeah, Heidi, do you want to start?
When I was child in the school, I used to be
Uh-huh.
quiet. I used to be shy. So I didn't used to talk with others so much.
Uh-huh. So you used to be shy, you didn't used to talk a lot when you were a child in school. Fantastic. Jake, what about you?
Mm, I live in New York City, and
Hmm.
I have been living in New York for approximately 2 years now. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much longer I'm going to. I'm thinking. So I used to go to Korea.
So, yeah, absolutely. But it's been a really good drive. Today I crossed Nevada. Nevada is a state that is mostly desert.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes during the drive, I I thought I was the only person in the world. There were no other cars on the highway
Mm-hmm.
for hours. Like for 2 hours, I was the only car on the highway.
And how
Such a
long?
such an interesting, such
How
an
long?
amazing feeling.
How
Two
long?
hours. I was for
2 hours.
2 hours.
And for this
Yeah.
lesson, how long do you need to stay there here, Starbucks?
Oh no no. Here I can stay here I can stay as long as I want. But for the lessons, I'll be here for 2 hours. Uh,
Mm.
what I was saying was earlier today.
Mm.
When I was driving, I was the only car on the road for two
Mhm.
hours. So
Okay.
it was a crazy experience. I've never seen
Mhm.
that before. Where usually I see some traffic, but
Mhm.
there's absolutely none. So yeah, hey Jake, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
Fantastic. That's awesome. You guys had dinner together.
Yeah, hello.
Uh, so really good guys. Francisco, how's it going? Welcome.
Hi, teacher. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Perfect.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm here.
it's good. Yeah, good. It's good to see you guys. Let's get started, guys, because of my technical problems, I was unable to start until right now. So let's get started. Um, welcome, guys. Today marks actually the first new phase of Colingo, so we are actually going to be breaking up classes into different levels. So the first thing I wanted to mention was that this class is actually a high intermediate level class, and I think all of you guys qualify for high intermediate. But from now on in Colingo, we're actually getting rid of the 100, 200, 300, 400 levels, and we're replacing them with actual descriptions of what level the class should be. And for this class, it's a high intermediate, right? So today we're going to be talking about used to, right? How we use used to. And just to get